Welcome, sisters, to Venus Blueprint Astrology. I'm Alicia Love.
I'm Karen Ledesma, and we are the Mage Sisters. We are here activating the sacred feminine through the Venus star path.
Yes, and we are here today to talk to you about Venus in her retrograde period. It is a short part of the entire cycle, and we teach the entire Venus cycle. We've got a program called the 8 Days of Venus, and we have co-authored a story of Inanna, a version that brings in all of the synodic cycle of Venus as the heroine's journey. And it is a map, it's a star map. So, we're going to give you some dates and all of the information for how we are working with this retrograde material. We will go over the ending of the sacred feminine Leo cycle through this Venus retrograde into the next cycle, which will be in Pisces for the first time in hundreds of years. So the Venus retrograde started March 1st and it will go until April 12th. That's 40 days, which is reminiscent to the 40 days and 40 nights of many spiritual guides over many traditions. Venus stations retrograde at Aries, 1050 degrees, and will go all the way back through to Pisces, 2437. In our video, we will share with you the themes we are working with, the shape shifting of one cycle to the next, preparing and working with that shapeshifter energy, the Venus star path as a divine feminine passage to power. And we'll cover the shadow retrograde material and what we're going to be working with over the next 40 days.
So, as we move into this energy of the retrograde, we're energetically talking about this shape shifting that's happening with Venus. She's been in an ascent cycle for the last 260 days, about 9.5 months. She's been this bright evening star, and now she is retrograding, preparing to shapeshift into a new archetypal goddess and a new sacred feminine cycle in Pisces. And she's preparing in that through her upcoming descent cycle. So this can be an intense time, it can be a disorienting time. She's turning around from our point of view, going backwards over these degrees. So it can feel like an intense, disorienting change of gears.
And it's a metamorphic transformation, right? From the sacred feminine energy of Leo into the sacred feminine energy of Aries and Pisces. We're going to go over all of the Aries and Pisces energies with you here.
So as we prepare to move through this shadow territory of Venus, it's important to know that we are working in this liminal space. And this is the territory of the wild feminine. This is territory that's a bit outside of space and time. It's disorienting, removing and synthesizing what we've already been working with in this energy of Leo. And we're preparing for a brand new rebirth in this very different energy of Pisces. And these are the larger, overarching archetypal themes of the two cycles. We're right in between right now in this liminal space.
This phase of the cycle can be really disorienting.
Yes. And it is initiatory, which means that it's happening to us, or that we, in some sense, have to invite it to work with it. It's an energy that is here to metamorphosize and transform us, but we have to take that pause to allow that energy to come in and to work with it, which can feel really uncomfortable.
This part of the cycle is the most uncomfortable. I feel it so strongly.
Well, add to it that we're in the energy of Aries
Yep.
and moving backwards. So I think, as we'll talk about later, we're talking about those big Leo to Pisces over stories, but at the present moment, Venus is actually in Aries. And I think she's very uncomfortable there.
Yeah.
Heart-centered Venus is on fire. There's so much fire. And it can be a lot to work with, especially when we're in the retrograde. So yeah, it's not an easy time.
It's so not. And it really does bring up those places where you feel discontent. And we try to work with that as the divine discontent because these are the opportunities. These are the emotions that push us outside of our comfort zone and give us those initiations into how we want to change, who we want to be, and how we can keep our hearts open while all of this is happening. It's been really intense with Venus and Aries.
Yeah. And if we can remember that everything that's coming up is an invitation and everything that's coming up is really information for what we're going to be working with in the next cycle, then it can help to not rush and try to solve and fix everything, but to really just understand that we're being given good information. So, practically speaking, as we move in the retrograde backwards over the territory that we've covered, and in some sense, that territory that we've completed because we've been moving up through this ascension, and this is, keep in mind, the end of January that we went into that 28-degree Pisces. So we're moving backwards from there. And this is the territory that we call the shadow retrograde. So we've passed it and now it's coming up for our review. So we can really, like we said, really feel into this, really intuit what's coming into our field, what issues and situations arise that need our attention, and how we can start to use that material to think about what's coming next.
Yeah, I remember back to the end of January and what was coming up for me, what my heart was doing, and how the entire month of February essentially was this territory that we're going to review back over. So, remembering what was happening in your life for the whole month of February and how those themes are going to come up again. You're going to get a chance to feel activated around them and mindfully work with them, heartfully work with them in different ways.
So on March 1st was when Venus turned retrograde, and that was at 1050 Aries. And Venus has been hovering at that degree for a while now and will continue to hover right at that degree point, which is part of the reason we feel such a stress and a suspension in time, because Venus has slowed down so much. And again, in that intense, fiery energy of Aries, and is just now beginning this slow backwards movement.
I feel it. It's requiring a lot of patience. And
Indeed.
then March 11th, Venus will join Mercury when she's back at 8 degrees, 47 minutes Aries. And this will be a Mercury Venus conjunction that will probably bring a lot of fire to your communication. Mercury being the ruler of communication, also an air sign. You get fire and air together, and it's like whoosh. So be mindful around all of this, especially your words and how you communicate around March 11th.
Yes. What's great about that is that Mercury will then retrograde later in the month, just a few days, I think, and then meet with Venus, and they will both go back together into Pisces. So it'll be this, oh, let's remember how to have more grace and compassion and kindness and softness, and then come back in together into Aries to maybe start anew or try this again. So we'll get another chance.
That's sweet. I imagine them like arm in arm. Let's walk together.
Yeah, they'll be good partners. So on March 14th, a couple of weeks into the Venus retrograde, we'll have this full moon, which is also a total lunar eclipse. So we're adding all of this eclipse energy into the mix. And during the eclipse seasons, we have these accelerated energies bringing things out of our life, bringing things into our life. So, add that to the mix of this wild time. And we have a lot of energy going on in the next few weeks.
Yes, and these eclipses are going to be on that Pisces Virgo axis, which brings in the energy of organization and daily practice. So, this might be a good time to initiate how you work with your sacred morning practice or evening bedtime ritual, or how you feed yourself in the most healthy ways, in all the ways, and treat it like it's a portal into a new way of being.
Yes, I love that. And especially with Saturn being right there nearby in Pisces, where Saturn's been, to really emphasize that maturity and that attention to our spiritual practices.
Yes. And then March 22nd is the Venus star point, and it's going to be at 2 degrees, 39 minutes Aries in her retrograde. That's when Venus is directly between the Earth and the Sun. And it's a very special moment to feel into the illumination of your feminine, and how that can also be one of those significant reset moments from sort of right in the middle of this retrograde, from the old cycle of Leo into the new cycle of Aries shifted to Pisces, right? Because the the last 100 years, this star point has been in Aries, and it was a morning star rise in Aries. And so we call it an Aries cycle. But this star point in Aries is so close, and then the rise will be in Pisces, that we are shifting into a new Pisces sacred feminine cycle.
Yes, and on March 27th, Venus will re-enter Pisces. So she's moving retrograde, but she's moving from Aries back into that Pisces. She's going to be doing that with Mercury pretty closely. So again, both of them are doing that really abrupt backward shift from Aries, this beginning point of the zodiac, back into this more inclusive and ending sort of energy of Pisces. So add to the disorientation of the retrograde the fact that we're moving backwards from Aries into Pisces.
It feels so opposite of what the flow of, forward motion
Yes.
feels like. But then we get the morning star rise, March 29th. Venus will rise as the morning star. For some of us, we'll be able to see it, and others, it might take another few extra days. But look to the morning sky and celebrate the new rebirth of Venus and Pisces and this whole cycle. And if you have anything in your chart at the 28 degrees mark, especially Pisces, also Virgo, any squares or trines, look at your chart and feel into this as an initiation into a new cycle.
A day later, on March 30th, Neptune enters Aries. And this is such a huge shift. This will take us into 2026, as both Neptune and Saturn will be doing this dance from Pisces to Aries, and then back again, and then together into Aries in 2026. So exciting that that happens the day after the morning rise. Again, really emphasizing that shift of energy happening from Pisces to Aries.
And Neptune is ruled by Pisces, so it's been at home there for a very long time. It moves very slowly. So, this is the only time we're going to see this happen in our lifetimes. So, we will feel it. And again, it's another reminder to bring that liminal energy into the physical and moving forward with action.
That's a great point. Saturn is helping us to stay really grounded and counter some of that intense energy with so many planets being in Pisces. It can be, without Saturn there, we could really, really get lost in that ungrounded, unfocused, boundaryless state of Pisces. But Saturn there is saying, really focus and use that energy, really use the energy of Pisces to stay plugged into the oneness, but to channel it into some kind of spiritual practice or some kind of maturation process. And then April 12th, Venus goes direct at 24:37 Pisces. And so the retrograde is over. She'll start moving again into through the direction of Pisces into Aries again. And we'll really feel that as a forward motion, enthusiastic, heart opening end of hopefully confusion and disorientation, and opportunity to really say yes to this journey ahead of us, which will be taking us through the descent towards the underworld ultimately. Yes, and this is the post-retrograde shadow period. So it is a different energy because she is moving direct, but we still are covering all of those degrees for the third time. This time, hopefully, with a forward energy and some mastery or some integration of some of those themes that have come up.
Yeah, I think that the theme is mastery. We are doing this over and over, back and forth, to gain mastery around our patterns, to see ourselves most clearly, and be able to, as she goes direct and then goes back over the North Node, see where we're headed ultimately as a collective consciousness, as a global movement. And who knows what's going to happen by April 24th in the global economy and what's happening. There's a lot of energy shifting, and we're along for the ride.
And fittingly, she, on the same day, April 24th, is conjunct with the moon at the first gate of authority at the crown chakra. So this is where our descent journey begins. We're at that 27:17 Pisces at that point, so very close to the North Node. So this is saying that, yes, this is about mastery. This is about us downloading and transmitting the authority of what we know, our connection to our divinity. And that connection to our divinity is so closely linked to the collective destiny point and where we are headed. Really exciting.
I love it. I want to go back to April 12th and say that when Venus stations direct is when we say that Inanna hears the call to take the descent into the underworld. And this is the ancient mythic tale of the Hems of Inanna that we have outlined and made beautiful for you in our program. If you go check out the story, you can purchase. It's about an hour long, and it gives you all of these journey points and how Venus is connected to them. And then May 1st, Venus re-enters Aries. So the fire is back and we get to work with it a little differently. It might be more tamed. It might feel very different than it did going backwards through it, where you were more disoriented. You might be more grounded and feel the focus. And just like when you focus in a flame, it can be very useful.
Yes, and she's just come back from being in Pisces, where she's really happy. Venus in Pisces is in her exaltation. She's connected to her divinity. She's connected to compassion. She's connected to empathy. She's connected to the sense of really being one with everything and everyone. So that shift back into Aries should feel a lot less bumpy. May 16th, Venus will be free from the retrograde when she reaches that 1050 point. That's the degree that she turned retrograde in March 1st. So when we get to that point, it's like open territory again. We've come through the retrograde shadow, the post-retrograde shadow period, and now we are moving full steam ahead into the descent cycle. May 24th, Saturn enters Aries. So Neptune previously within the retrograde entered Aries. Now we've got Saturn. So again, these two huge planetary energies doing this dance, moving into this first degree world point of 0 degree Aries. We know we're going to feel it. We know things are going to be shifting in the collective. And we know that working with this Venus in Aries, Pisces energy, that she is helping to mediate that energy to us on a really personal heart level.
Okay, I know. Oh, I love this. Venus and Aries energy has really activated the goddess Inanna as a warrior initiation priestess. And some of the lessons that we are getting through this Venus and Aries time is to be on mission, to feel like your relationships include your mission for life, that you're not just solo, but your relationships aren't the only thing that you want to focus on, but it's both. So it's good to identify where you feel your own power and where you are wanting to connect and have right relationships in your life. And Karen and I have been feeling it because the warrior energy can feel pretty fierce and we can take things personally. We can feel fiery and anxious and upset about the littlest things. And both of us continue to come back to our sisterhood relationship with so much compassion, sweetness, and acknowledgement that the fire is there. What are you going to do about it? We're going to work with it and tend to it in a good way.
Yeah, it's really great to just acknowledge when in likely we're all feeling that way. It's just so much fire. And Venus in Aries is not very comfortable. It's teaching us something. It's teaching us about our boundaries. It's teaching us about our desires and where we really want to have a voice and where we really are committed to our own mission. But it's also showing us where that fire can rub up against others in relationship and create friction and conflict. That if we can bring some of that Pisces understanding and compassion to, it really does go a really long way to bring it into the open, to really acknowledge it.
Yeah, and this Venus retrograde going back and forth between Aries and Pisces is really about the peaceful warrior, about coming with loving compassion and always choosing love. There's no weapons with love. It's always how do we come to a beautiful understanding from our hearts with these beautiful intentions to balance your needs, my needs, the masculine, the feminine, the solar, the lunar, and how we can feel our sovereignty and our attention.
Venus in Aries also just really gives us a great flavor to begin the descent cycle. The descent cycle is by nature one that requires the courage of Aries. And as the morning star, really highlights Venus as the goddess of war. So it really characterizes the flavor of the descent journey that is to come. So it's kind of great that we have this energy coming in with Venus being in Aries to prepare us for this, what's happening in this next descent cycle. Even though we're in a Pisces over story, we're getting a lot of fire and courage as we start to consider possibly what it's going to take, what we're going to need courage to surrender and release within us in order to really embody Piscean values and Piscean compassion and oneness and the ability to be in that exalted state of Pisces. So it's going to be an interesting journey.
Yeah.
And Venus in Pisces is our mystic healing priestess. So couldn't really get more different than Venus in Aries. She is oriented to her heart as being a healing presence on the planet. She has a trust in her more mystic, fluid, watery self. She is attuned to the feeling dimension of life, sensitivity, compassion, and the wisdom of really tuning into our empathy to perceive the oneness between us. She lives in service to spirit, in connection with unity and oneness and bliss. She really is the goddess that teaches us about boundarylessness. So while Aries helps us define our boundaries, Venus in Pisces helps us to show where those boundaries don't actually exist.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because I think of this Venus and Pisces energy as just surrendering to the flow, leaning back, allowing that water to support you from underneath, and just surrendering to it in this like trusting the divine, trusting the process, and allowing that to be the healing that, all that fire and Aries energy is like pushing us to do more and be intense. And then the Venus and Pisces through this retrograde, we're going to go back into how to integrate all of the softness. And the entire overstory of this next Venus cycle is going to soften us into that Pisces mystic and surrender and trust. So I'm looking forward to this beautiful cycle that we're going to journey together. We've got our 8-day program so that you can see all of the phases of the cycle and all of the energies of it at any point of the cycle. You can join into that. And then once we've got this fully direct energy and Venus is in her cycle and she's heard the call and she's stepping forward, we're going to offer a 12-week circling program that we look forward to hearing about what you're interested in and how we can work together in our sisterhood. Check out the ancient mystic tale of Inanna we've recorded on our website, venusblueprintastrology.podia.com, and our 8 Days of Venus course. If you would like to join the Sisterhood of Venus, we have an online membership that will be ready soon, and we hope to see you there.
Yes, we hope that you do join us in the medicine of circle and sisterhood as we journey this Venus star path together. It really is a beautiful experience to take this collective story of the divine feminine, really birthing something into the collective, and then to see how that is playing out personally within us and between us and among us as we gather together in sisterhood. It's really a special experience. So we hope that you join us, come and check it out, come and find Sacred Feminine community.
Mhm. So many blessings from us to you on your journey.